Path Media.
All right, welcome to Path of the Jedi, the podcast where Star Wars meets personal development. My name is Ronnie Cruz, your host for this ambivalent adventure. That's right, ambivalent. Yeah, it's the best word that I could come up with today. I've been on thesaurus.com for the last 15-20 minutes trying to really pin it down and find the exact sentiment, find a word that can best describe what I'm feeling today. And ambivalent is the closest one because it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag of feelings, mixed emotions, and not to say that there's I'm not excited. There's plenty to be excited about. As Star Wars fans, I think we've all been in kind of this excited state for the last week or so, especially surrounding Celebration and all the announcements that have come out of Celebration. And then, of course, Andor Season 2, which I'll talk about in just a second. I'll talk about all that in just a second. But, ambivalent. It's a mixed bag of feelings today. I mean, the best way I can put it is just one of those days. It's one of those days. I'm feeling listless, right? Listless. Languid is another good word for listless. But at the same time, I'm feeling a little uneasy. I'm feeling apprehensive, and this state of being isn't foreign to me necessarily. It's especially of late. Again, it's just one of those days. It's just one of those days. So I wanted to communicate that to you, dear listener, in case in case you ever find yourself in this state of being, in this state of emotion. If you find yourself listless and languid, but also feeling anxious and apprehensive and uneasy, I've got a little bit of a message for you towards the end of to the back half of today's episode. For now, as I mentioned earlier, there is a lot to celebrate. There's a lot to be excited about. Andor Season 2 is, it's premiering as of this recording tonight. It's premiering tonight. Really, really excited for this. We all, I think, as Star Wars fans, have been waiting for this this day for quite a long time because Andor Season 1 was so good. And can't wait. I can't wait. I know I can't wait. So I'm really excited to be doing Andor Season 2 episode by episode discussions here on the show. And I still, fully intend to have guests on to join us here on Path of the Jedi for these discussions. There's so much that we can talk about with Andor. I mean, even if we go back and talk about Season 1, there's so much that we can still talk about. But Season 2, I think, is going to give us a lot. And so I would love to have guests on. And it is still my intention, of course. It is still my intention, my goal, my target to have people on here and join us for those for the Andor Season 2 discussions. I haven't as yet, however, reached out and asked anybody to join us. I haven't invited anybody to join the discussion yet, and I've kind of been not really avoiding it, but it's one of those things, right? It's one of those things, which may be why I'm feeling a little anxious and uneasy and apprehensive today. This might be contributing to that anxiety. Well, I mean, if if you want to join the show, if you want to join the discussion, I'd love to have you on. Especially if you're a podcaster. You don't have to be a podcaster. Either way, I'd love to have you on, and hear your thoughts, hear your ideas, especially in the context that we talk about here on the show, the kind of analysis of character and character journeys and human behavior, all those things that we cover here on Path of the Jedi. If you feel like you want to contribute to that conversation, please reach out. Click that button that says send a text on whatever podcast app you happen to be listening on, and we can communicate that way. And just let me know that you wanna be a guest on the show. Or if you're on Blue Sky, which if you're not, I encourage you to get that app because that is where I am most active as far as social platforms, anyways. Find me on the Blue Sky app. I'll leave the link to my profile in the show notes of this episode so we can connect. And you can ask me any questions as far as like the format, and we can trade ideas around if you're really interested in joining this conversation here on Path of the Jedi. I would welcome you with open arms. Yeah. But yeah, either ways, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to reach out to some of my colleagues in the Star Wars podcasting world, and have some guests for you guys here that are listeners. Yeah, super excited about Andor season 2. Also super excited about all the amazing announcements and reveals and yeah, all the good stuff that came out of Star Wars Celebration this past weekend in Tokyo. Man, so much good stuff. I can't of course list all those things for you today. You can go check that out, check it all out on StarWars.com. But one of the things I'm most excited about is Star Wars Visions Volume 3. So a third season of Star Wars Visions. And on top of that, actually, not just a third season, but spin-off, right? So we're getting a Star Wars Vision spin-off called Ninth Jedi. So yeah, this opens up the possibility of many of these individual shorts in the Star Wars Visions franchise to be expanded, right? To be expanded. The Duel, which was the very, very first episode of the entire series, was one of my favorites. The black and white kind of samurai one was incredible. So yeah, I mean, really, just to see any of these shorts expanded into longer form or maybe into a series would be incredible. So hearing the announcement of the Ninth Jedi is super excited. So actually, what we're gonna do today, because I'm super excited for Vision Season 3, I'm gonna share an episode from our back catalog today, like we did last week. I shared an episode from our Andor Season 1 discussion. Today, I'm going to share an episode from our Visions discussions, the first season of Visions. Really super proud of that entire series that I did on Visions. And I say that I'm proud because, for this reason, my sister, when she was listening to the podcast, to those episodes, to that series, she said, "Man, these episodes are really good. It makes me actually want to watch the animated show, the animated series in conjunction that go along with each episode of the podcast." So that's the only reason. Like, if I did a good enough job to compel my sister to want to actually watch the the series, the animated series, then yeah, it's something that I feel very proud of. So I think you'll like it. And again, it kind of opens us up and prepares you for the coming season of Visions in October, I think it is. So buckle up. Well, not really buckle up. Just sit back, relax. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this discussion on Visions, the Duel.
You're listening to Path of the Jedi with your host, Ronnie Cruz.
All right, welcome to Path of the Jedi, the podcast where Star Wars meets personal development. My name is Ronnie Cruz, your host for this illuminating adventure. And yeah, well, welcome to, what is it, mid-March already? It's crazy how fast time is going when you're having fun. I'm having a great time with you guys here on the show. And I'm actually glad to be back home. I'm back home at least for another couple of weeks, and I'm back in the chair in the home studio. So last week I shared with you guys my top 5 favorite female characters, women characters of Star Wars, and that was a great deal of fun. If you guys haven't heard that episode, go back and go back and listen to it. But as soon as I recorded and uploaded that particular episode, I realized, man, there's so many other characters, other women of Star Wars that I just completely spaced on, right, and didn't even give it any kind of mention to. You have someone like Jyn Erso from Rogue One. What an amazing character. You have Vice Admiral Holdo from the sequel trilogy. You have Ventress, right, a villain, but really so much more than just a one-sided villain, right? She came from the animated series and has a couple of books that she makes an appearance in. And so, yeah, she's an amazing character. You have Omega, another animated character that's brand new that made an appearance in The Bad Batch. much. And of course, how can I forget to mention Amidala? Come on, Amidala. She's so central to the prequel trilogies. Yeah. I mean, it's good fun. I again, there's so many amazing women characters, female characters in the Star Wars universe. The list that I mentioned last week was definitely not exclusive, and it's always ever evolving anyway. So if you missed that episode, if you want to go listen to it and find out who I picked for my top 5, go back and listen to that last week's episode. This week we are going to dive into the animated series called Star Wars Visions. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with this particular show, it's a collection of Star Wars anime that came out back in October, I believe it was when it first came out. And we haven't gotten a chance to really dissect and discuss those yet. So I wanted to take this opportunity. It's 9 episodes, 9 different shorts in this particular series, all completely unrelated to each other. Each one is a standalone storyline, and they're not necessarily canon, but they're incredibly fun and they're incredibly rich nonetheless. Also, what this will do is it's actually a 9-episode show, and so that'll put us perfectly if we do one episode per week. That'll put us perfectly into May, around the time when the new show comes out. That's right, Kenobi. So I think, it just kind of worked out perfectly. I didn't intend that originally when I decided to do this series, but the Force is strong, isn't it? Okay, so the first installment in the Star Wars Visions series is a beautiful piece called The Duel, right? The Duel. And again, for those of you who haven't watched this series yet, I encourage you to do so because all the shorts, all the episodes in this series are magnificent. I absolutely love them. And they're not that long. They're anywhere in the 15 to 20 minute range, I believe. And so, after listening to today's episode, you can hop on Disney Plus, watch the episode. You'll see what I'm talking about, and it won't take you any time at all. And you will absolutely not regret spending that time watching it because, again, they are marvelous episodes. They're marvelous work. So this particular one, The Duel, is actually black and white with a very sparse use of color, so that when we do see color in this episode, it pops immediately. We see it and it stands out. On top of that, there was a grainy effect added to the finish of this episode, so to make it look like an old film, right? And which is cool because it takes place in a village that looks to be feudal Japan. So you're immediately reminded of like those old classic samurai movies by Kurosawa. For those of you guys who are my film buffs, right? Now, of course, it's not feudal Japan, right? We know that it's Star Wars. There are Star Wars elements in it, and we follow the story follows a wanderer, right? This Ronin looking individual and his droid, and they're just coming across this village, probably to restock, buy supplies, and be on their way. But of course, as is true to fashion to the genre that this episode is paying homage to, some bandits come rolling into town, and what we learn is that these bandits have been plundering and pillaging in this town. They repeatedly just come and pick on the town, and so we know that it's up to our wanderer, right? It's up to this Ronin who has just randomly wandered into town. It's going to be up to him to save the day. Again, it's a story that's been retold time and time again because it's just so compelling to watch, right? We have the film The Seven Samurai. We have the Western, magnificent, if I can say that right, Magnificent Seven, right? The Magnificent Seven, it's an old Western that's actually was remade just a handful of years ago. But also, I mean, if you look at movies like Bug's Life, same theme, right? Like the grasshoppers come in, they pillage the ants, and so it's up to these other bugs to come save the day, right? Another one that comes to mind is The Three Amigos. I absolutely love that movie, right? And it plays on the same premise. We even see it in the more recent Star Wars stuff that's come out recently with an episode of The Mandalorian and pretty much the entire season of the Book of Boba Fett, right? And so the premise works. It really works. And if you do it well, it can work very well in any context that you decide to use it for. In this particular context, it's the samurai version of Star Wars. That's our framework. Bandits harass village. Village tries to stand up to bandits, fail because they're too weak. Enter random wanderer to save the day. For me, the theme that really stands out from this particular episode is don't judge a book by its cover, right? Don't make assumptions about people. On the surface, though, it seems a little bit more cut and dry than that, right? It seems a little bit more black and white, literally and figuratively. Good guy versus bad guy, bully versus bullied. You have, the theme of overconfidence and arrogance versus humility, right? It seems pretty clear, and naturally, you have to have for the sake of storytelling, you have to have a clear, delineated good versus bad, antagonist versus protagonist. The antagonist in this case, of course, are the bandits, right? The raiders. Now, the leader of these raiders is a, quite frankly, very frightening Sith Lord. And we know by this point, especially if you guys have been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, we know that Sith are very, very difficult, if at all possible, to stand up to, right? Unless you have a Jedi on your side. So all that's pretty straightforward. The bandits are evil, and they go from village to village picking on the little guy. Of course, real life is definitely a lot more nuanced, right? When you see instances of individuals who might present themselves as arrogant and overconfident, even acting as bullies, that comes from, there's so much more backstory to it, right? Because it comes from perhaps a deep-seated insecurity and lack of self-worth. And of course, in the cases of being bullied, especially the more extreme cases, that can come from, trauma and abuse, right? So there's so much more going on than just the simple fact that those individuals are bad and evil. But that's not really the conversation that I want to have today, because this is personal development, not other people development, right? The stuff that we learn, while it can provide some insights in terms of the actions and behaviors of other people, it's primarily meant to be self-reflective, contemplative, right? And I totally understand that it's a natural thing to do when you learn something new, to use those new things that you know as, applying it to the world around you, right? To categorize and label the world around you and the people around you, but not in this space, right? In fact, doing so in this space, putting more labels and putting more definitions on the things around you will actually limit your growth and actually limit your progress. In essence, becoming more certain about what you know will actually make you more like the bandits and the Sith Lord who, are traveling the countryside assuming that they're stronger and that they can defeat everybody that they encounter, that they can take advantage of every village that they go into. What we know from storytelling convention and, this particular episode, The Duel, is that bullies eventually get their due. In their arrogance and overconfidence and thinking that nobody can beat them or stand up to them, they eventually and ultimately encounter somebody that can and does. In our case, again, it's the Wanderer. And so the story goes on, and after having seen enough, our Wanderer, our Ronin, finally decides to step in. And I'm watching and I'm thinking, this is going to be awesome. This guy, he's probably a Jedi. He's going to whoop everybody's ass. He's going to go toe-to-toe with this Sith baddie. Now, it's important to note that up until this point, the only few bits of color that we've seen are blaster bolts that have exchanged between the villagers and the bandits, and, of course, the red lightsaber of our Sith baddie. When they finally square off, some pretty cool things happen. We learn pretty quickly that, yes, the Ronin is in fact a Force user, and a pretty powerful Force user at that. But when he finally unsheaths his lightsaber, we don't see what I think we might have expected, and that's like either a green or a blue lightsaber, the color of a Jedi. What we actually end up getting is that he's wielding a red lightsaber, the lightsaber that's typical of a Sith Lord. This reveal turns everything on its ear, because red lightsabers are reserved for the bad guy. So why is the Ronin, number one, using a red lightsaber? And number two, why is he fighting against other bad guys? For a brief moment, our Sith baddie is just as confused as we are. But she snaps out of it pretty quick, right? Going back to her own certainty, what she knows about the galaxy and the people in it, right? How the things work. And I guess she assumes that this Ronin must be some Sith flunky, calls him a coward, probably assumes that he was weak and he couldn't make the cut. And so she goes on and continues to fight him, probably thinking that her victory is a foregone conclusion. Fast forward through the rest of the story, of course, our hero prevails. Spoiler, right? He defeats the Sith baddie, defeats the bandits, saves the village. Again, on the surface, this looks like a story about good versus bad and good prevailing. But I think it's so much more than that. To me, this is a cautionary tale. If you look at it from the Sith's perspective, the bad guy's perspective, her undoing was her arrogance. She judged a book by its cover and overplayed her hand. She was holding on so tightly to what she thought she knew about the world, about her world as a Sith, that reality eventually put her in her place, and put her in her place in a very, very permanent way. So we really have to be careful to not be assumptive and presumptive about anything or anyone, because there's really so much more going on beneath the surface. My advice would be this: go easy on people. Go easy on them, because you have no idea what they've had to do to be where they are. And also understand that they have no idea what you've had to do to be where you are. So instead of being assumptive and presumptive, how about let's show each other a little bit more compassion, a little bit more understanding, a little bit more empathy. Because life, very much like this episode of Star Wars Visions, isn't just black and white. All right, well, that is Star Wars Visions, The Duel. What did you think? Yeah, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, especially on Blue Sky, but you can send me a text on from the podcast app that you're listening on. If you haven't watched Visions yet, I encourage you to watch it. There's so much great stuff there. I mean, it's super, super creative. The just even the varying styles of art and animation. It's different from episode to episode. If you watch this first episode, The Duel, it's in black and white, and it's very kind of in this manga samurai kind of feel. And again, every episode is different from the next. So it's really quite a lot of fun. And there's season 2, which we haven't discussed yet here on the show, and then of course season 3 coming out in October. So lots of stuff to talk about, lots of stuff to discover if you haven't discovered it yet. And again, for me, that entire series, the Vision season 1 is some of those episodes are among the most proud I've been in terms of episodes. Really had a lot of fun, and I feel, it's just I feel good about them. I feel good about them. Which, tying back. Let's go back to the very beginning of this episode. I communicated how I was feeling today, and so if you find yourself feeling this way, here's a practice. Here's a tool, a practice that I've kind of incorporated over the years, because it's the ups and downs of life, right? And especially if you tend to be a little bit more on the depressive side. I've incorporated this practice on days like today, right? When I'm feeling less than chipper. To be honest, it takes some days it takes a lot of energy to sound chipper on this show, even just to sound chipper, and to be on the mic with enough energy to make it worth your while to listen to, right? It takes a lot out sometimes. I don't. Sometimes I have to manufacture it. Let's say. It's just one of those things. It's just the reality that I live in. So the practice is that on days when I'm feeling especially low, I always try to make sure that I find one thing thing to celebrate, one thing that I've done or that I've accomplished, even whether it's that day or something that I've done in the past. Focusing on something that I feel good about having done or having participated in, or just something good about myself that I feel good about, right? Something about myself that I feel good about. It's really important that you do this. I did this a few weeks back, and I posted. This was actually a couple months back, but I posted this on my Blue Sky. I was feeling, it was another day like today. I was feeling pretty low, and the only thing I could do was, the only thing I could get myself to do, right? It gets tough, when you're feeling listless and languid. It gets tough to motivate yourself to even do the simplest of tasks. So the one thing I was able to do that day and get done, which I'm still really proud of, was incorporate podcast buttons on my website, on my blog. Right? Sounds really simple, which it's not. I mean, I'm not technically savvy in the first place. But to do that on a day when it feels heavy and you feel languid, you feel listless, it was an accomplishment. So things like that. Celebrate. Right? Celebrate yourself getting out of bed. Celebrate yourself brushing your teeth. You got to celebrate the little wins, even if it's one small win that you had today or yesterday. If you're feeling bad, that can really help, and it really shifts your focus away from how you might be feeling. As much as I work to try to control how I feel, it's not often doable. And so what I can control is what I can work to control is the things that I focus on, and doing this practice of celebrating the small things, right? Even the smallest of celebrations, the smallest of things, is really helpful. It is really helpful, and it gets you up out of bed the next day and the next day and the next day after that until things start to lift, right? So hopefully that tip helps, and that's why I wanted to start off this episode talking about how I was feeling today, because again, there is once you start getting into this practice, you realize that there is so much that you can celebrate about Star Wars, right? So much out there that you can celebrate about the world, about the community around you, about the people around you, but especially about yourself. And that's what I hope, and not just hope, but that this will remain my mission. It will remain my goal and my purpose for this show is to celebrate, right? That's why we do the shout outs. I didn't do a shout out last week. I forgot. If I'm going to do another shout out, if I'm going to do a shout out this week, the shout out does go to you. It goes to you, dear listener, who have been so supportive of me, who you give me a reason to show up to this microphone, to sit here in this chair every week, and I appreciate you. You again, you give me purpose. With this show, you give me purpose, and you give me cause to celebrate. So, I think I gave you guys a shout out recently, but I'm going to give you another shout out because I really appreciate each and every one of you deeply and from the bottom of my heart. So, dear listener, this week's shout out goes to you. Okay, one last thing before we go. As usual, I'd like to ask you, if you're not already following the show, go ahead and follow the show. That would be a great help to us to grow this show. Actually, that is the most helpful thing you can do to help us grow this show. The second most helpful thing you could do is share it. If you like this episode, if you like the content, chances are somebody else will, right? Other people will as well. So just think of one person who you know who might appreciate and enjoy the content, right? Enjoy today's episode, enjoy the show. It just takes 3 to 5 seconds. Hit that share button and off we go. It'll be a tremendous help to our goal here in growing this show, so that we can attend Star Wars Celebration 2027 now as a podcaster. I've said this before recently. I don't know what that entails. I don't even know what that looks like, but I do want to attend the next celebration as a Star Wars podcaster. And now that it's in 2027, I have a little bit more time to make that happen. But I'm not going to be able to make that happen without your help, because we do have to grow this show. So just do us a huge solid. Follow the show and share it, and you will have my undying gratitude. All right, well, that's going to do it for today. Thank you again for tuning in. Next week, remember, we have Andor Season 1, Episode 1, so make sure to tune in. But until then, have a great weekend. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and may the Force be with you. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company nor Lucasfilm Limited, and is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is intellectual property of Path of the Jedi unless otherwise indicated.